This is probably the most requested lesson I've ever had on Minitip Monday. We're gonna learn to lift the front wheel on your adventure bike, your dirt bike, whatever you got. We're gonna get that front wheel off the ground and we're gonna learn to do it consistently. Welcome back to Minitip Monday. When it comes to lifting the front wheel off the ground, the technique with which you use, I think, is very important. When you ride a dirt bike, you can get away with quite poor technique because of the way the bike is and the way it makes power. It's very easy to get the front wheel up. But when you start riding bigger bikes or you go to more difficult places, your technique needs to be better to still be able to do that skill properly. And I think you can break this down into 3 requisite movements, which for the most part, we've got basic lesson versions of already. The first of those is your position on the bike and then how you initially move. The goal when you're trying to lift the front wheel off the ground is to use your body to move the suspension and use the suspension moving to lift the front wheel basically for you. That is the idea. So we're going to use our body weight to compress the suspension, and when it uncompresses, we use that uncompression with a little bit of engine to make the bike come off the ground. You can use this same skill to preload over obstacles to get both wheels off the ground. The only thing that changes is where your body position is. That's the determining factor. The first part of this is making sure your body position is in a really good basic place. Your basic standing position is good, balanced, your heels are down, your legs are straight. If you have no idea what I'm on about, we have a video called Basic Standing Position and one called Advanced Standing Position. You can find those on our channel, go and watch them. It's going to make an enormous difference if you start in the right place. The first part of learning to do this is we are going to bounce the suspension. And we're going to do that by compressing our legs and driving our heels down so our weight goes through the foot pegs. Pushing your weight through the foot pegs will compress the suspension, and then we get that lovely uncompression. That uncompression, that's our friend. That's the bike doing its thing for us. We've put a bit of energy in, it's giving us back what we need. To learn to do this, just do it on the flat in a straight line. We're going to ride in a straight line, nice standard, good basic riding position, and then we're going to compress our body down through the foot pegs. Have a practice of that. Do 20, 30 reps. It's going to get your heart rate up, but it's going to give you that feeling that you need to transition to the next stage. The next stage of our movement process to make the front wheel come off the ground is we need to move our body weight backwards. The idea is that you bounce, and when you get to the bottom of your bounce, your hips go backwards towards the rear wheel. So you're using that compression on the fork, the front of the bike, to unweight just the front wheel and put weight on the rear wheel. That helps massively with the ability for your bike to come up when you then introduce throttle and clutch to the mix. This looks something like this. I haven't got a center stand on this bike, so I'm gonna have to get my lovely assistant, my father, to hold the bike for me. From this position, this is my nice basic standard riding position. I'm cruising along a dirt road. I'm gonna bounce like that. So my heels go down, and when I get to the bottom point, my bum goes back a little bit. How far your bum goes back is purely determined by how high you wanna get the front wheel. You wanna flip it, put your bum way over the rear. Just want to do it a little bit, just here. Just there is enough. The last part of this process is probably the most complicated. We now need to do the power delivery. It's the power delivery and how we feed the power out that's going to help the front wheel off the ground. Now, when we're talking about doing this off-road, we don't have maximal grip to work with like we do on the tarmac, so there's a few things we need to think about. The first one is, as a general rule of thumb, low revs are really good. Low revs, use the torque, be gentle with the ground and get grip, and the front wheel is much easier to get off the ground and to do so predictably. That means we want to deliver the throttle progressively and feed the clutch out progressively. The idea for this, the real basic foundation for this skill set, is another Minitip Monday we've made called get better at clutch control instantly, I think I called it, because I think it's incredible for learning to use the clutch better and for doing this exercise. The process of what now happens is, as we do the bounce, the suspension compresses. When we do the bounce, we then shift our bum back, and as the suspension gets to the point where it's at the bottom of its bounce stroke, we then feed the power out by turning the throttle a little bit and gently feeding the clutch out. You can hear when I do this, the revs are low. It really makes a big difference. And the timing of this is very important. You want to do it at the point that the suspension starts to uncompress, so that when you're delivering power through the back wheel, the suspension at the front of the bike is uncompressing, it's getting lighter, and all of those things happen together and the front wheel comes off the ground. Hopefully you can hear how low the revs are when you go from 0 miles an hour. It's really low revs rather than really high revs. The revs pick up a little bit the faster you go. You need a bit more pizzazz. When I talk about this in a video, it sounds incredibly simplistic. It's simple. It's 3 steps. If you follow them in the correct order and you time it well, the front wheel will come off the ground. The reality of the situation is it's a lot more complicated than that. It's nuanced, it's difficult, it takes a bit of working out to make sure that you're doing it in the right order and to get a feeling for the timing and to get a feeling, if you're new to adventure bikes, how to do it on a bike this big versus how to do it on a dirt bike. You have to be much more precise, but if you follow those tips over time, a little bit of practice, you'll get there. I think one other thing that makes a massive difference to learning this is to do it off something. So learn to do it off a stone that's buried in the ground, or a curb, or something that just helps with the front wheel pop. A couple of other things that really make a big difference for me. On some bikes, this is difficult to do, especially adventure bikes. A really big factor is the weight balance of the bike and how it delivers its power. Some bikes are great at it. This GS, despite being a big bike, is very good at this. The way it delivers power and the balance and the way the front suspension works makes this much easier than it should be. There are some other great bikes at this that are adventure bikes. Tenere 700, amazing at this, very easy to do. The weight balance is towards the rear wheel, helps massively. If you have a bike where that is not the case, you can artificially increase the compression of the fork by using the front brake. So a quick, gentle compression of the front wheel, followed by the clutch and throttle coming out, creates the same situation. Really good for slow speed, really good if you have a bike where this is particularly difficult to do, or you're riding more extreme situations. That is how to lift the front wheel on a bike. Compress down, go backwards, let go of the clutch and throttle a little bit. One last thing to cover with this is a little bit of safety. It's a good idea to cover the back brake in case you do a really good job of it. Do a really good job of it, you become a YouTube video. The other safety switch is our clutch. When we let go of the clutch to deliver the power, we don't let go of it and death grip the handlebar. You want to keep a cover on it so that, again, if you get a bit excited and you do a great job of this, you can pull the clutch in and, yeah, hopefully it won't come over on you. So there. It's a long way to get there, but it might happen. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. This week's Minitip Monday is complicated, but also simple. If you want to see more of these videos, you want to see the videos I'm talking about, or get a better understanding of all the little nuances that come with riding a bike off-road and building up to doing techniques like this really well, we run this as a series on Patreon where you can subscribe and get these in 10-episode series. We also do a podcast that's part of that series. We release videos early, and we have a bunch of other ways you can support us if Patreon isn't for you. We love making these videos, and a little bit of support goes a long way, so have a look at our web shop down in the description. And otherwise, remember, life's better when you're riding.